Hi guys, Michelle Whitehead here, bringing you business serenity through wise management and legal support. I've had a few questions in a number of groups lately about electronic document signing programs, providers, and how to know who the best one to choose is and looking for recommendations. And I just wanted to tell you from a legal perspective about one of the factors that you should seriously consider if you're changing providers or if you don't have a provider and you're looking to set one up. The thing is to look for a provider that has a local presence. So if you're in Australia, you want an electronic document service provider who also has branches or is based in Australia. If you're in America, then HelloSign, QToSign, any of the American-based services will be fine. If you're in the US, look in the UK or the EU, look for service providers that are local to where you do business. Not where the majority of your clients are based, but where your actual physical business is located. Now, there's two reasons for this. The first one is that if you're going to the trouble of having your clients or whoever sign this document, it's usually because it's important to you and you're going to, in the back of your mind, it's there that it can be enforced at some day if everything goes pear-shaped and you actually need to do so. So you want to make sure the document is actually legally enforceable in the jurisdiction where you live. So in the location, the court system that your business works in, operates in. Now, there hasn't been any case law around this yet. It's still relatively new. It hasn't been tested in the courts. So we don't know for certain whether a document that is signed through a document service provider, electronic signature service located overseas is actually going to be valid in the courts or vice versa in the US or the UK or the EU. The other complication it causes is that it raises the question of where the document was signed. Was the document signed in the country where it was uploaded? Was it signed in the country where the person signing it was located when they accessed the document on their computer and signed it? Or was it signed at the actual country that the service provider is in? So it becomes a question of which law applies, which rules apply. All of the contracts are a common law concept. That means all of the countries that have inherited their common law legal system from England, the British Empire, so that's Australia, New Zealand, Canada, USA, that we all have a similar common law of contract. But we have different legislation, which means that's the written law that Parliament writes down. And the regulations governing how electronic signatures work is actually contained in legislation. So there are likely to be minor differences. And the other problem is that that legislation can be changed and altered simply by an act of Parliament. So it can be changed, or Congress if in America, or whatever your rule-making government body is. And so in order to ensure that over the long term, the regulations and the rules under which your document was signed match the regulations that are required in the country where your business operates, it makes sense to have the service provider operating from the same location as you're operating. The second question again relates to that issue of jurisdiction, the second factor, because if even if your document specifies, if your contract specifies where disputes are to be heard, disputes that are in relation to this regulations, whether the document was validly signed, may need to be heard in the location where it was signed. So if it turns out that you had a document and your client says, I never signed it, and you say, yes, you did. I've got this report from the company, and the company says, yeah, here's our rules. It was under these regulations. You and your client might both find yourselves having to travel to the country where the electronic signature service provider is located in order to argue the matter in their court, rather than having everybody come to you. So for your convenience, your future convenience, it again makes sense to have your electronic signature service provider, it's quite a tongue twister, electronic signature service provider in the same country as your business is operating out of. Now, a number of people have said to me, oh, but I've always used Gmail, I've always used HelloSign, I've always used Adobe Documents signature service. Do I have to stop? And the answer to that is no. In most cases, well, actually, the answer to that is that it's up to you. I'm just providing the information. What you do with it is completely up to you. I just want you to be able to make an informed decision, whatever decision you make. In most cases, in my experience, entrepreneurs who are having documents signed are doing so with very little intention of ever enforcing them. It's just a way of formalizing the relationship. It's what's expected. It's just going through the motions. And at the same time, their clients, they don't expect their clients to actually read the document, the contract, or whatever it is. Now, I think that's a terrible shame, because it's the received notion of what a contract is, that it's just this boring, mundane waste of time, legal jargon. We're just doing it because we've got to do it. I'll save for another day the actual explanation of what I think contracts can really be, which is a sacred container holding the space for your beautiful relationship, managing the boundaries, really setting your intention and your client's intention, managing everybody's expectations. Really, as I said, that sacred container in which your relationship can function. But for those of you to whom at this stage they're still just a throwaway, what we have to do, then it doesn't really matter where you get it signed. If you're not intending to rely on it at a later date, then don't worry about it. Where this might be important to you is if you've never used an electronic signature service provider and you're looking to set one up, then you may as well use best practice in setting one up from the start with full knowledge of why you're choosing the one you're choosing. If you're not happy with your current electronic service provider and you're looking to change, then here is a very important factor to consider when you're making that change. If you're at that tipping point where you've built your business up to being really successful and you're kind of stuck and frozen in moving forward because you're not certain that you've got all your ducks in a row, you're paralyzed by the worries and the what ifs, then here's one little factor that can add to that movement, that progression from an amateur to a professional mindset. And if you're doing really high-end contracts, if you're doing high-price, really expensive contracts that you cannot afford to write off, if you are in your mind knowing when you get your clients to sign it that someday you may need to enforce this because you can't afford to lose whatever it is they're supposed to be giving you, or that they might enforce it against you because if something goes wrong, if you can't deliver your services, they've put a lot of money into the deal, then having it signed in the location where you do business is always going to count in your favor. I hope that's clear, and that you, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to explain any of that. And I look forward to talking to you again. Bye.